we'll start off by talking about some of the tools. Basically, it's just a regular tool belt. I like to keep them with a pouch right here. That way I've got my tape measure. The card goes right up front, the hard card. This is one of the things, actually you'll modify it just a little bit. The hard card actually comes straight, edges on both sides. Usually just take a knife and cut these out. And the reason being is sometimes it's hard to get into these corners when you make your cuts. That's what you're going to use as a guide to make your final cuts on the film. This squeegee here is actually used at the end in conjunction with a paper towel. Take the paper towel and you use that to do the final squeegeeing around the edges to remove any excess moisture around the edges so that it pins it down good. The squeegee with the Blue Max squeegee on it, the handle, is actually a pretty good tool for applying a good amount of pressure when you're trying to remove all the moisture between the film and the glass. We also have the scraper. It's a double-edged blade. It's a stainless steel blade. Use that to clean all the glass. That way you can hit every square inch of it. It is a pretty wide blade, so it actually doesn't take very much time, rather than just a small blade. Red dot knife for the snap blades. I like the red dot because the clickers in it seem to be pretty solid, and actually it's just it seems like a pretty good knife. And then a squeegee. Doesn't necessarily have to be anything in particular, just some sort of a squeegee for removing the moisture from the glass. And then of course some paper towels. And you'll see how all these tools work here in just a little bit. We'll start by spraying the glass down. This is going to be the first step. You'll actually want to add a longer hose. This particular jug, I haven't added a longer hose yet, but that way you can actually set it down behind you. Maybe even run your hose up through your loop right here. That way it's handy, and that way you can reach all this glass without actually having to hold it. But for right now, for demonstration, we'll just use this sprayer with a shorter hose. I'll just have to pick it up every time. Miss the glass. Take your scraper. I like to start in the right corner, just so that I know where I started every time. I just try to do everything exactly the same every time. Go around the edges first. All the way up to the edge of the rubber. And you want to make sure, even overlapping a little bit, because you want to remove any dirt, dust, debris, anything like that, anything that's stuck to the glass. Make sure you get every square inch. That quick and easy. The glass is scraped. Just do it one last time. So your squeegee will slide. Take a paper towel. Wipe along the edge. Same thing on this side. Wait to do the bottom last. And a lot of times I like to start at the bottom, come up the side, that way you clean the sides, the top, and then on the right side. Now, it's pretty easy just to make the motion back and forth. Pulling all the moisture, all the dirt, and everything down to the bottom of the glass. Last wipe down here on the bottom. A little extra material. I'll make sure I get it all out of there. Leave much down in there, it actually will wick up in there if you get dirt. So you want to try and wipe the seal, or the edge of the window, or whatever it actually is. You want to try and wipe that at the same time you're wiping the glass. Get everything out of that corner, because it actually, the dust and dirt will actually kind of wick in there. So you want to get it as clean as possible. It's clean, now you're ready to apply the material. Okay. One other thing you want to keep in mind is not applying in direct sunlight. It'll evaporate that moisture so fast that you won't have time to squeegee everything out. Next thing you know, you're creasing and ruining a piece of film. So you want to make sure that you do it most of the time in a shaded time of the day, or be ready to hurry, basically. I mean, I have applied it in direct sunlight, but you don't want to do a big piece. I would not recommend a piece like this in direct sunlight. It'll dry out way too fast. So now that we have the glass clean, we make sure we got the right piece of film. We're going to go ahead and apply the solution to the glass. It's not really a set amount, just kind of whatever feels good. But you do want to make sure that you get plenty on. A little extra is better than not enough. That will cause you more problems than anything, because then you'll have to try to peel the film back and apply more moisture, and that gets to be a problem. All right, this one's big enough, takes 2 people to handle it. So what we're gonna do is try to get this layer, make sure we keep it tight. That's key. Keep it tight so that when you do peel it down, it doesn't want to wrinkle the film. And make sure we keep it tight, peel it all the way down, try to peel it as evenly as possible. All right, so go ahead and set it. Yep, now set it down, let it go ahead and fall to the ground. And we're gonna stick it. You can either just step on it from here and pull it the rest of the way off, or like we're gonna do.
Okay, you got somebody out there.
We'll go ahead and apply half of it. Remember to keep it pulled in, and you're going to line that factory edge up with the rubber. You have enough material over there, and you go your way. And you can slide it around, so go ahead and get it on there.
Okay.
And once you get it on there, as long as you have enough moisture, you can slide it around to where you want to and work some of these main wrinkles out. You don't want to put too much pressure on it because you don't really want it to stick. You don't want it to pin down yet. You're just trying to get it lined up. All right. So you generally leave just a little bit of a gap at the top. If you go too tight, what happens is certain areas, these seals are gapped here and it's tight here. And if it doesn't go behind that, then what it's going to want to do is that rubber seal is going to want to push that film down. So you want to leave a slight gap.
Okay.
That way you don't have any pressure on the edges of the film. And then for right now, we'll go ahead and pin it down.
So you want to pull this off?
Nope, we'll pin it down first.
Okay.
That way it doesn't slide on us. And pin the top down first. And that's going to keep it from sliding down off of that top rail. Doesn't take a lot of pressure. You're going to come back and squeegee it later. Like I said, all you're trying to do is just pin it down and hold it in place. So a lot of pressure right here doesn't really matter. But you want to make sure that your squeegee is sliding. If it's not, if you don't have enough moisture on there and it's not sliding, these areas where these wrinkles are could crease. This will actually slide, or not slide over the top of it. It'll actually cause a crease right here that can't be removed. So you'll end up ruining a piece of film. Now that we got it pinned down, we're gonna go ahead and finish it. Let's go ahead and finish pulling the, let me spray it just to make sure. Go ahead and pull it out. Spray a little bit more in there. Make sure that we have enough and hold it to the glass. Hold your hand on the glass. Okay, as you can see, it did pull off a little bit here. We haven't ruined anything yet, so it's not a big deal. All we got to do is pull it off like this. We're going to go ahead and re-wet that top where we already squeegeed the material. You just want to make sure that you have enough in there. So we're going to go ahead and redo that. Stick it again. All right, that side moved too.
Okay, I'll let you do that. Get out of your way.
Now, as long as we have moisture behind all this, it'll slide around to where we had it originally. The only thing that causes problems there with these poles, because of the way we had to fold it back in order to remove the liner, caused a little bit of problems. But it's not ruined. We can still save it. I'll usually use a smaller one to pin it down at the top because it does provide a little more pressure. And we'll go ahead and just use the larger one. Pull the moisture out. That's not very good squeegee. You don't need to get all the way to the bottom yet. Just close, within an inch or so. All you're doing is removing a lot of the excess moisture and wrinkles, trying to get it in place so you can do your printing. There, that's good enough. Now you take your knife and that white heart card I talked about earlier. And if you need to at this point, if you don't have a new blade, make sure you snap it, get a new blade. Always start with a fresh point. That way you get a good clean cut the first time, you don't have to go back because that can cause you problems. Starting on the bottom, over in the left corner, this is going to be your guide for cutting. Your blade's going to go right up against the edge of this hard card, and you're going to use that as a guide because you, again, just like the top, you want that little bit of a mark or a void in between there so that there's no pressure on the film. And this does take a little bit of practice, especially in the corners. While I've got my knife and card in this hand, I'll go ahead and do the left side. Right up the side, and I'll go ahead and start up in the corner. I'm going to start in the corners and pull back towards the middle. Now that'll fall out of the way. Finish that. Same thing, just repeat it over here. And a lot of times, it will just fall right out of your way. Again, from the corner to the center, doesn't really matter how far you go up. For me, it's easier to go from the top down, so I don't go up very far. And the hard card is falling right along the edge of that rubber seal. And your knife is right along the edge of that. Sure that you have it all the way. You don't want to just grab this. Sometimes it doesn't cut all the way. You don't want to just grab this and pull it because sometimes you'll pull the film because it's going to be attached. So just make sure that it's cut good. And there it is. Now you're all trimmed. Gonna wet it down one last time for a final squeegee. This is where you're going to remove as much of the moisture as you possibly can. Again with the blue squeegee. Start from the center, and basically you're separating the two sides. Start from the center and squeegee up all the way to the top. the way across the top to the corner. Just keep repeating that all the way to the bottom. And here you're fairly firm pressure. You don't need to put a ton of pressure on it, but enough that you know you're removing as much of the moisture as you can. Everything else will dry out. Sunlight obviously helps with that. A little heat helps it dry a little bit faster. Gonna do that all the way to the bottom. Come back over to the top, do this side. And you want to use this smaller squeegee again here because you can actually put more pressure on than this big one. This one here is just for the initial one where you can remove a lot of material or a lot of the moisture fast. This particular one puts a lot of pressure in about a 4-inch area. That way you remove all the air and all the moisture that you possibly can. All right, now that we went over all of that, final step, take a paper towel. The gold card, you want to fold this over generally a couple times depending on the paper towels that you have. You always want to try to get lint free. But I generally like to fold it twice and lay it over the edge. And what you're going to do is go around these edges to remove the last little bit of material. And sometimes you'll have squeegee marks right here in the middle where you started. That's about the only marks you have. And before I do that, I'll generally just wipe those real quick. That way I don't have to do it later. But you can see the rest of the window is pretty much clean other than the outside. So that's the only part that needs to be done, so I'll do it right now while I've got a clean towel. Fold it over the hard card and go around all the edges. You're pushing that little bit of moisture that's left that you didn't get with your squeegee or that did get squeegeed out and is now up against the seal. You're removing that last little bit of material or moisture that might wick back underneath there, and you don't want that to happen because then it could come loose or it's going to pull dirt. So you're just pinning that last little bit down. A lot of times, if you have woodwork and stuff like that, I usually take a towel or a couple of towels and lay them down along here. If the sill is big enough, like if it's a deep window sill, I'll lay towels down in there, as long as they don't get in your way. But you want to make sure you wipe up most of the moisture when you're done. That's pretty much it. That's finished product. Just made $200, maybe more. You try to cut that perfect. Some areas you will, some areas you won't.
Yeah.
Well, the areas that you don't and you get it too tight, that rubber seal is going to push that film and it's going to pucker right there. And you're going to keep going over it and keep going over it. And every time it releases, it sucks more dirt in. And you push it down and it comes back, it sucks more dirt in. Automotive's really bad about it. So you want it stuck down the first time. So that light gap's common. Once in a while you will get somebody to say something if you're doing the dark ones, like a 15. Here it's not noticeable, but if I were to put 5% on here and the sun comes around, you're going to see that light gap, which on something like this, there's no way around it. The only other way is if you pull the seals, but there's no reason to take on that liability. And as far as I'm concerned, I mean, that little bit of light gap doesn't change anything.
No.
Worst case scenario, you could put black bead of caulking. You know, once that's dry a week later, little black bead of caulking all the way around that, and you'll never even notice it.
9 minutes, 22 seconds, less than 10 minutes, $200.
And it's $7 a square foot. That was 178 and some change. $178, and you're gonna have $25 in it because it was 25 square feet. So you're gonna have around $25 to $30 in it. So you're making $150. You made $150 in 10 minutes. Yeah, by the time you tint these, a guy makes, I'm not kidding you, around here, a guy would make, tinting these windows would probably profit what a normal person around here would make in a week. You know?
Yeah.
In an hour. In an hour.